listening to the Drinks and a Movie podcast, hosted by Rudy Ruiz. Spoiler alert.
You only live twice, or so it seems. One life for yourself and one for your dreams.
Welcome to Drinks and a Movie podcast. We are continuing the 007 series as I go and watch all the movies in order. So today we are up to You Only Live Twice from 1967. But first, the next drink we're going to have for this one. We just finished the Weller core lineup, so now I am moving on to the wonderful William LaRue Weller from the Buffalo Trace Antique Collection. This is the 2024 release, coming in at, I think it was 125.8 proof. So once again, this is their, their wheated bourbon mash bill. So substituting the, instead of rye, they use wheat. This is 12 years old, at least, so 12 years, and cast strength. So essentially we have the Weller 12, but now at that 125.8 proof. And, I was lucky enough to get this bottle from Louis Liquor in Azusa, shout out. This is one that is really tough to come by and very, very expensive on the secondary market. People sell them for well above $1,000. I did not pay that much for it. I will never do that. But yeah, so I got kind of lucky with this. I'm not going to say what it was, but shout out to Louis. I managed to get this through them. So yeah, William LaRue Weller, let's go. Again, I've had this a few times and it's always a banger. It's definitely up there with some of the best bourbon I've ever had. Now, interestingly enough, I'd say right now the aroma, so I'm recording this, right after I finished my last episode, so the Weller 12, the 90 proof one, is still fresh in my head, and the nose is very consistent. You can tell it's the same DNA, the same everything. You just get a little more, I don't even want to say heat on the nose, because it's not, even though it's a higher proof, it's not like there's a ton of alcohol vapors that are just burning my nostrils, but I'm going to say it's more rich. You can nose that there's a greater depth to this. So I'm going to go right in, everybody. Cheers. And yeah, very, very good. What is there to say about it? You get those same, for me, the same notes. That cherry, the wheat, you get more of the oak fluence on this one. So almost even a little bit of a leatheriness, just a hint, maybe a tiny bit of tobacco, just a teeny bit, that you can get out of some of this older juice sometimes. Nice Kentucky hug as it goes down. Again, you get some heat, but it's more in that like spice well, like even though it's 125.8 proof, it's not just like destroying your esophagus on the way down. It's warming, it's rich, it's flavorful, like on the back of the palate as it goes down, the nice, like you get a wash of like vanilla flavor that comes out. And in moments, almost a little bit of like, I don't know, some kind of fruit, not quite the cherry, but some other kind of fruit note. I sometimes get off like these wheated ones. I can't put my finger on it. Maybe a little bit of an apricot. Let me see. Yeah, it might be it. Maybe apricot-ish. Yeah, it's really good. It's definitely one to just kind of sip, and enjoy. Dark and rich. Once again, I'd say you get those darker flavors more than the sweetness. Like I mentioned, some vanilla on the back palate for sure, but it's pretty subtle. It's more of an undertone. And yeah, I'm super lucky to have this. That's not lost on me. I never thought in like 100 years I'd own this bottle. It was like, it's something I'll never get. But I managed to make it happen, which is really cool. And it's nice to be able to compare it. I think pretty soon I'm going to make maybe a blind tasting video where I try it against the 2024 Maker's Mark Cellar Aged, which was another one I didn't think I'd get. I didn't get the first release in 23, but I got the 24, and I was not that impressed, to be honest. I think their Heart release was like just as good, maybe even better at least. And even the Lost Recipe. So I might take the 4 of these and blind taste them at some point. It'll be a video if I do it, as well as the Larceny Barrel Proof. The, what was it? The C924. I have A124 and C924. And if I remember correctly, I think C924 was like really high on Fred Minnick's top 100 whiskeys this year for 2024. I want to say it was in the top 10. and I think even above William LaRue Weller. So I'm curious, blind tasting him, how that's going to be, because that's a bottle. I mean, it's been a while since C924 came out now, so I don't know how many are floating around in the wild, but that's one you can get for like $65, $70. So, and I did open mine and I did taste it, and it is really good. And it gave me a lot of the same textures. Like when I broke the seal on the William LaRue Weller, it's so rich and everything. It had this big Pop Rocks effect on my tongue, and almost kind of, it's weird, but like gravelly, like just a ton of texture. Not in a bad way, not like grainy and young, obviously, but just this interesting texture to it. And that C924 Larceny Barrel Proof was very similar in terms of, texture and finish. And I mean, hell, like I didn't try them back to back, but it did give me a lot of the same reminders. So, I'll blind taste them pretty soon. It'll be interesting to see how that pans out. Because again, if you can get that Larceny Barrel Proof in most places for like $65, then, that's a no-brainer, of course. But yeah, William LaRue Weller, it's a banger, everybody. I mean, hopefully you get to try it sometime. I always bring up the Cove in West Covina. That's a really great cocktail bar, whiskey bar. It's divey, but they got all the goodies if you're into whiskey, Scotch, bourbon, rye, even really good tequilas and mezcals. Like they're not messing around over there. Great, single barrel picks, and that's a good place to go and try some of these. Anyway, let's jump into the movie.
Welcome, Honorable 007. He's the one and only Sean Connery.
Welcome to Japan, Mr. Bond.
He's bigger than life, facing 1,000 deaths. And you only live twice, and twice is the only way to live.
We're too late.
Well, at least he died on the job.
Bond is dead.
Bond is alive. Kill Bond! Now!
No matter what the odds, they don't stand a chance against James Bond, Sean Connery, 007. Bond, the world's greatest gentleman agent with a license to kill. And he never misses a chance.
What's a nice girl like you doing in a place like this?
Bond is back, grabbing love where he finds it.
Like a lamb to the slaughter.
Everywhere. Bond rises in the east. The odds, 1,000 to 1, but they don't stand a chance.
Get down!
All this is just a drop in the ocean. The best yet from the film creators of 007.
Tiger said, "From now on, you must do everything in Japanese style."
Everything?
So You Only Live Twice from 1967. Now we have a new director. This was directed by Lewis Gilbert. And starting with the opening, it's pretty interesting. We get right into it where we have some astronauts, American astronauts on this space mission, doing something with like a rocket up in space. And this other unidentified flying object, this other rocket comes and just kind of swallows it. And they lose connection with, Houston down on Earth, and everyone's kind of freaking out about it. And then we get this meeting with the Americans, Russians, and the British, about, and it's Cold War time, right? So the Americans are like, yo, the Russians, you guys did this. What'd you do with our ship? This and that. The Russians are like, nah, it wasn't us. You're blaming us. And so they're kind of bickering. And then it's the British folks that are like, yo, we don't think it's that. It's probably some kind of other power that's pulling a fast one on us. So we're going to go and figure it out. And we already got our man in Hong Kong. He's on the job. So referring to James Bond, who's in bed with some chick, and then she betrays him, presses a button, and it's like, are they called Murphy beds that people used to have, where the bed like folds into the wall and you pull it down? And it's like that, where then he's in the bed and it suddenly like folds up into the wall, and some dudes roll up with machine guns and they're just blowing away the wall. And then we cut to some MI6 agents that are in there, and Bond is dead. They're like, oh, well, at least he died on the job. It's what he would have wanted. And from there we get into the opening credit song. So interesting open to kind of kill off Bond in this first scene. That's pretty fresh. Obviously, he's not really dead, but kind of an interesting way to start the movie. And this opening song is sung by Nancy Sinatra, and this is another one of my favorites. I like this one more than Thunderball. It's pretty catchy, the melody. Nancy Sinatra does a great job singing. She's got a great voice. And you know, the melody and the music is just begging to be sampled in a hip hop beat. And I know some folks have, like, I guess it's I'm not familiar with this artist, but there's an artist called Robbie Williams that has a song called Millennium that sampled it. CeeLo Green, I guess, sampled it in some song from years ago. And I think there was another one I found, but I mean like a dope underground like hit like Daedalus or like if MF Doom was still around, he would sample this, you know, Madlib, RZA, like some dope like hip hop producer. It's just begging to be made into a beat, you know, maybe even you know, I don't know if Childish Gambino makes his own beats or has another producer. I'm not really in all of that, but you know, even him making this into some kind of beat, someone's got to do it. Just make a really cool hip hop beat, but it's a great song. I rate this one pretty high. One of my favorites so far. And yeah, the kind of big location for this movie is Japan. So, you know, Bond goes to Japan. So we're in another new location. As always, shot on location and at Pinewood. And one other thing to note about this is, you know, all the books are pretty much just like the movies so far, where you can just like pick whichever one and read it. There's not necessarily a big continuity between them. But apparently this one is meant to be part of a trilogy. So Thunderball, it went in terms of the books, Thunderball, and then You Only Live Twice. And then I believe Thunderball, Diamonds Are Forever, and then You Only Live Twice, I believe was supposed to be the order. Hopefully I'm not mistaken, but I don't remember what the rights issues or whatever that was going on, but it, you know, for movie purposes and getting it made for whatever reason. Oh, I think I remember I'm mixing this up. It was supposed to be Thunderball, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and then You Only Live Twice. On Her Majesty's Secret Service, though, required a lot of, I guess, shooting in the Switzerland in the snow, and there wasn't any snow. And there was also some like tension between countries and some other stuff going on. So they're like, well, we got to get a movie made, so we're just going to skip that and we'll do You Only Live Twice. So save On Her Majesty's Secret Service for later. But in terms of the books, I believe that was the order. Please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. And, you know, Matt asked me the other day if I planned on, you know, after I watch all the movies, am I going to read all the books? And I was like, hell no, man, I don't have time. I got like a stack of books I'm still trying to read. I try to do a chapter every night, but I'm trying to watch movies. I'm trying to do other personal projects, writing. It's a ton. So I only have so much time. But now I am kind of interested in reading them. So maybe at some point I will check out the books. Especially these three. They seem very interesting if they do follow a continuity. If it is supposed to be like a trilogy in itself. But yeah, so, you know, Bond has to go to Japan. We meet Aki, who's, you know, kind of a Bond girl in this one that's going to help him out, gets him out of some predicament, saves him. There's some good fight scenes and, you know, the typical kind of Bond espionage stuff. It's pretty cool. A lot of great little one-liners and whatnot. And the most ridiculous part of all this, in this movie, I did like a lot. I would rank it pretty high so far, but it just gets too ridiculous. And I guess a lot of people were saying this at the time as well. Like, this is when it starts to really go off the rails. There's this whole, you know, plot where he has to disguise himself as a Japanese person. So he has this contact from the Japanese Secret Service, Tanaka Tiger. And I do think it's pretty funny that like the code is I love you, you know, like Miss Moneypenny's like, yeah, I picked something you'd remember. I love you. So he has to like say that. That's like the password for them, which is kind of funny. But, you know, he's hiding out in Japan and they have this lair where there's dude, like all his agents are ninjas. So they're all training and fighting. So James Bond has to train with the ninjas and he has to do like this bullshit makeover to make him look a little more Japanese, where they give him a really bad haircut and it looks like they thicken up his eyebrows and like dye all his hair black. And he's just like squinting. And so he's got to pretend to be a fisherman and he has to get married. So it's just super silly. I'm like, whatever. I mean, it's fine. I do remember seeing bits of that when I was a kid and laughing at it, even at that time of like, what? He's got to like, look, I don't know. It's silly. But there is this moment where Aki, who is a pretty cool character, like a cool companion and like, you know, someone to look over him, but she ends up getting poisoned. Some other ninja like comes into poison Bond. They sneak in, but you know, a little bit of luck. He happens to roll over and then she rolls over next to him. The poison gets in her mouth and she just dies immediately. And I didn't see that coming. It was a little surprising. I was like, oh shit. Like, so I do appreciate that they've raised some stakes. You know, we saw that a little bit in the other movies where, you know, they're not afraid to kill off some of these characters partway through the movie. You might think they're going to make it and they don't. But then he has to get married to I think her name's Kissy, and that, yeah, all that was just kind of dumb to me. But, we get some moments of seeing kind of the main villain of this movie, and it's going to be number one. And this is where we finally meet him as, I think it's Ernst, oh my goodness, Blofeld, who is number one. So later in the movie, we finally reveal his face. In this film, he's portrayed by Donald Pleasance, and who I just love Donald Pleasance. Like, because Halloween, Dr. Loomis, I just think he's awesome in anything. And yeah, so it's cool to see him. I do have to say though, like as he's interacting with Bond and all these people, he somehow, like before he's shown, he seems pretty menacing. There's a part where somebody screws up like a plan. I think this other Spectre agent chick, and he like pushes a button and the floor collapses and she falls into a pool full of piranhas. So that's all kind of funny, I guess. And it's another one of these parts that's obviously very much an influence to Austin Powers. Like Dr. Evil's whole look and the look of this base and lair, this like they're inside a volcano. Like Austin Powers lifted so much from this movie. Mainly like the Donald Pleasance Blofeld character. But yeah, we have his white cat. We don't see his face in the beginning, but when they eventually catch Bond near the end, he reveals himself.
Stop that astronaut. Bring him to me.
Stop that astronaut!
Summon the reserve astronaut.
Reserve astronaut to launching pad.
Immediately.
Reserve astronaut to launching pad immediately.
You made a mistake, my friend. No astronaut would enter the capsule carrying his air conditioner. Remove his helmet. James Bond. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Ernst Stavro Blofeld. They told me you were assassinated in Hong Kong.
Yes, this is my second life.
You only live twice, Mr. Bond.
Target vehicle passing over central Russia. Approaching Mongolia. Track is as predicted. All computer
As you see, I am about to inaugurate a little war. In a matter of hours, when America and Russia have annihilated each other, we shall see a new power dominating the world.
It's somehow, even though I love Donald Pleasance, it just doesn't quite, I don't know, there's something about his vibe that just doesn't feel menacing enough to me. Yeah, I just can't put my finger on it, but I mean, I love him regardless. So, but I'm trying to think if there's any other stuff I'm missing here. Yeah, and here's something crazy. I think in this one, we're now, as far as budget, 9.5 million. And for this film, the volcano set, like the big lair, cost almost as much as the entire budget of Dr. No. So that's pretty crazy and amazing with how, far they've come up to this point. But that's pretty cool. I mean, good for them to just keep, upping the ante with every film. And one other aspect of this that's kind of interesting is we get a pretty cool battle scene at the end where all the Japanese like agents, all the ninja guys come down to the base. So, it's Bond fighting and they're trying to stop the rockets or bombs or whatever the hell's going on. I don't even remember at this point. Sorry, I've seen too many of these movies. But it's a pretty neat battle scene at the end. The last film we got underwater. Now we have it in this base. And there's a moment when they're training where there's some dude doing like a lot of swordsmanship, like a samurai sword. They're training. He's like beating all these guys, and they bring it back where you see this dude and it's really good, like wide shot. It's not super cutty. And he's just like wrecking through all these guys with the sword. It's a pretty cool moment, I thought. And then Blofeld actually escapes. So we're not in a situation where we are just killing off the bad guy. Like he makes it out of there alive. So, obviously for the next movie, since this is going to be a trilogy. And I think that's cool because, Spectre's kind of been the villains throughout the movie and we've been building up to like number one. We never saw him, but we know he's pulling the strings, and for him to finally be in the movie, like as an active participant and then the getaway, I do kind of like that. But yeah, all in all, I mean, with this one, it's another fun movie. It gets pretty ridiculous, but we're really fully into all the tropes now. Bond's little quips and one-liners are always hilarious. Q coming in with the gadgets and the weapons. I forgot to mention that they do. Well, I don't think this was Q. I think this was Tanaka's group. but they have a cigarette that launches, that's like a rocket launcher. That was pretty cool and fun. Q brings in little Nellie, which is this like single man helicopter that Bond flies at one point, which is kind of neat. But yeah, this is another fun one to me. And I think this may have been the longest up to this point at 2 hours, I want to say, or 157. Maybe Thunderball was a few minutes longer, but now they are starting to, Thunderball was actually 2:10, so a little longer. But yeah, I mean, it's another fun one. I again would put this one up pretty high. For me, it's just some of the him having to disguise himself was pretty dumb, so it loses some points for that. But all in all, again, another really fun movie. And, watching these every day and almost back to back, it hasn't gotten boring yet. What I like is every movie, even though we're seeing some traditions and some tropes and all that, being in these different locations every time and them trying out a few different things like the underwater fight. And now, we got some shit in space or whatever, and the volcano layer, and we're in Japan. Being in a different location every time gives it something fresh. So it's like always interesting, I haven't gotten to the point yet where I'm like bored and it's super old, but we'll see if that's going to happen. There's still quite a few movies to go. Yeah, but I think that's all I have for this one, everybody. Let me know, have you seen this movie? What are your thoughts? I would love to hear about it. So leave me a comment on the Instagram or on the YouTube channel. Send me an email, drinksandmoviepod@gmail.com. Please like it, rate, and review, especially on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Can definitely use some more reviews and ratings on there. Even if you don't like it, just let me know. I'm trying to be better about some of the stuff I do here, but a little bit of feedback isn't a bad thing. So yeah, let me know. But I really appreciate it if you guys are into it so far. And if you have listened up to this, thanks for being on the journey with me again. I'm someone who never really watched any of the Bond movies, so I'm seeing these all for the first time. And it's been kind of fun. I actually look forward to it. And it'd be cool to hear from you if you're someone who's also not seen them and you're kind of watching along with me. That would be neat. So let me know if you're out there and you're doing that. And again, if there's anyone that wants to talk about a particular Bond movie that's coming up, in the near future, let me know. And I'll try and get you on the show. I want to talk to people that are really passionate fans about it and kind of get their perspective. So it's not just me solo all the time. But anyway, that's a wrap on this one. James Bond will return and On Your Majesty's Secret Service. Cheers.